Hey everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. And welcome to Wake Up Wednesdays. So, wake up. These Wake Up Wednesdays are an opportunity for us to reinvigorate one another, for us to recharge and recalibrate towards our plan. And the way that we do that is we pick our heads up midweek every week and we check against our GSD list, which is a get stuff done list, which is an outcome driven list, not a task based list. And if you're a list guy like me and you like to cross off your to dos and you feel good and you get excited about crossing off your to dos, but your to dos don't lead towards your outcomes on a 3, 6, 9, 12-month horizon, then what's the point anyway? You're just going from meeting to meeting, you're double and triple booked. You have multiple people calling you, pinging you. You have emails backing up, queries backing up, DMs backing up. So welcome to Wake Up Wednesdays and wake up. I want to talk to you guys today about an article I posted in the group chat entitled How to Ace Quarterly Planning. I'm going to check my notes here to make sure that I get everything in. And quarterly planning is like hitting the refresh button on your business strategy. It is a structured way to assess progress, adjust priorities, and set new goals for the months ahead. But the fourth quarter is especially important because it sits in the pivotal point between the mid-year review and the push to the final line. What you do in Q4 can determine whether you meet, exceed, or fall short of your annual goals. So make sure your Q4 plan is rock solid. All right, so let's break this down so that your quarterly plan doesn't just stay on paper, but your plan comes to life. So the number one thing is the strategic review, not to forget the big picture. So make sure you review your do's and don'ts, and you want to include in those do's your year-to-date progress. And before you set new targets, you want to take a comprehensive look of what you've achieved so far and where you've fallen short. You want to make sure that all of the things that you plan for are in alignment with the overall annual goals and objectives. Do not ignore the business strategy. Make sure that the things you're creating are in line with that vision and in line with the long-term goals. Do not revisit every single task. It's to look at the overall, the larger goals, the deliverables, the milestones, the initiatives. It's not to look at every single little task. The next most important thing is your resource allocation and making the most of what you have. It is not a question of resource. It is always a question of resourcefulness. So audit your resources. Take a look at what you've spent so far, what you've used so far in the first 3 quarters, and what you're planning to use for the 4th quarter, and be realistic. Prioritize high impact things first. Make the most of your ROI. Do not overload your team. Don't look at the plan and say, well, we didn't get done what we planned to do, so everyone's going to have to work longer hours. Everyone's going to have to come in on the weekend. Don't do that. You're just going to burn your team out. Prioritize. And don't ignore capacity. From a systems perspective, if you're overloading your systems, maybe it's time to look at next year's budget and increasing the capacity of those systems. It is not to ignore the capacity and overload those systems, just like you don't want to overload your people. The third item is risk management. This is where you have your RAID log, your risks, your assumptions, your issues, and dependencies. So do make sure that every single risk and issue by the end of Q3 coming into Q4, you have a mitigation strategy in place. This is where you plan for the unexpected and building contingency plans. How long does it take for your system to come back up when it goes down? What's your sustained resiliency? What's your disaster? What's your organization's rotational schedule? So if someone's out, if someone leaves, you guys can cover each other. This is where you don't want to be overly optimistic. You don't want to ignore potential risks and just sort of be optimistic and say, well, I think that they'll just resolve themselves. They're not going to resolve themselves. You have to make sure you have a plan in place to address them. And don't just wait around to say, well, it's a little bit of an issue right now, and it won't. We can deal with it. Don't wait for it to get worse or materialize and become reactive. Be proactive. Have it in the plan. Have it in the rate log. Have mitigation strategies. Okay. Number four most important item is breaking the silos. Have cross-department collaboration. It takes a village. Do make sure that you're working across your development teams, your product teams, your operations teams, your sales organization, and make sure everybody's on the same page and the communication channels are open. As we get to this final stretch, very important that everyone stays in sync so that we don't make mistakes and waste all the money that we've spent all year long on this plan. We want to make sure we also do share resource knowledge. So if one department in particular is doing something differently, they're new, they're falling behind, this is where maybe we can take the logistics department, have someone in the logistics department talk to them and walk them through the process that they've already figured out so that they don't need to reinvent the wheel. Do not create silos. Don't only talk to the sales team and then separately only talk to the product team or only talk to the logistics team. Give everyone the same message the same way at the same time. Keep everyone on the same page. That's another don't. Don't assume they're on the same page because they're probably not going to be. Even if you are communicating to everyone in the same way at the same time with the same material and the same words and visuals, people are still not going to be on the same page. So don't assume that they are. Number five, actually, keep the customer focused. Keep the end user in mind. Number five, customer focused, end user in mind. This is where you're going to get all your customer feedback from the first, second, and third quarter, and you're going to look at your trends to understand what is the customer saying, what's happening, and you will iterate to make any adjustments that are required for Q4. Don't lose sight of the customer journey. Don't assume that stakeholders that are more verbal than others know better, assume better, and don't ignore feedback. Don't take a subset of feedback and say, well, these customers are high-value customers or sophisticated customers or executive customers, so I'm only going to listen to them. Don't do that because you're only going to get a segmentation of your customers. You're going to run into trouble. Okay, so the bonus, the sixth item, to make sure you ace your fourth quarter planning is to re-energize your team. Motivation matters. This is so important. Your team should be exhausted by this point. You've been pushing them across Q1, Q2, and Q3. They are at the final stretch. If they've been working just as hard as you, they should be exhausted. So how you're going to help with that is you're going to take everybody out, you're going to celebrate, you're going to take people to lunch, and you're going to get them excited about setting the goals for Q4 to come to the end of the year and hit that final stretch. Do not try and push them to get to the end of the year without recognizing what's been done. Don't ignore when people are fatigued, and don't do silly things that no one really cares about, like escape the room kind of games. People don't want to do that stuff. If you take them out to a nice lunch, it doesn't take them away from their family. It doesn't take them away from their work too long. They get good food. They have an opportunity to talk to people they don't usually talk to. And that's a great way, in addition to socializing all their accomplishments. All right, guys, so wrapping that up to go, quarterly planning is an ongoing process that you have to do every quarter throughout the life of the project. Q4 is especially important because it is the home run stretch. It is the end. It's where you want to lead with momentum and clarity. So you want to focus on reviewing your strategy, resource allocation, risk management, collaboration, staying aligned with customer needs, and motivating your team. So what's the call to action? The call to action, number one, is give your organization the gift of structure and focus because it needs it. It's a gift. So schedule that Q4 planning meeting effective the first Monday morning business meeting of Q4. Schedule that meeting, give them the gift of structure and focus. They need it. Make sure you have a quantifiable measuring stick to measure what was done versus what's left to do. This is where you bring in your KPIs, your OKRs, your SLAs, and you talk about real hard concrete numbers. So it's not subjective in regards to, well, we think this is done. You measure exactly what's done versus what's left. And the number three call to action is re-energize your team, celebrate the first, second, and third quarter wins, give them the empowerment to do whatever they need to do to get Q4 done. Take them out to lunch. Make sure you're giving them good food, good drinks, good company, and you're taking care of your team to re-energize them so that they can get over the long stretch for Q4. Okay, guys? So thank you once again for taking this opportunity to think about how to ace your Q4 planning and how important it is to hit that refresh button to get to the end of the year successfully, to deliver on everything we said we agreed to in the beginning of the year. And once again, welcome to Wake Up Wednesdays. So wake up, let's talk again soon and keep the conversation going. Hustle harder.